British Independent MP Rupert Lowe has recently announced that he's setting up a new party called Restore Britain. This follows on from the work that he's done with the private inquiry into the grooming gangs. That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Monday, the 16th of February, Alex. What are we going to talk about?
Let's talk about my favorite chili con carne recipe.
Very good. We shall do that. But I thought the Munich Security Conference, perhaps, because we spoke about it on Friday with Susan and Tom, and nothing much had happened. But since then, we've had the speech by JD Vance.
Y- You mean Marco Rubio?
Oh yeah, Marco Rubio. Same, same.
Yeah, yeah. JD Vance was last year.
You want to talk about that or something else? What's
Uh,
uppermost? Rupert
well,
Lowe. Rupert Lowe has announced a new party, Restore Britain.
yes, that's very good. That's very good. I don't know how far he's gonna get, but it's a good thing he did because everything else is either government or controlled opposition in the UK.
Could he not be controlled opposition?
Well, it doesn't sound like he is. I don't. Him blowing the lid off of this rape gang uh, things is uh, is huge. I think that we are still, I think we are still to find out how huge this is. It's been going on for decades. It's been enabled and covered up from the very top of the British political establishment and the media. It's been called the greatest peacetime crime in British history,
Hmm.
and it's still going on. And the two of the most prominent people charged with covering it up are current and previous prime ministers, Keir Starmer and Gordon Brown. And so the fact that this is coming out could take down a lot of people. But I think that it will also undermine, as nothing before, the confidence of British people in their whole establishment because, you know, Keir Starmer was director of public prosecutions when he orchestrated the cover-up. Well, he issued reporting restrictions so that the media wouldn't cover the story and that the British people wouldn't know about it. He also dropped the prosecution of one of the major gangs, I think Rotherham. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly.
Rotherham.
Rotherham, yeah. He dropped prosecutions against them, even though they had overwhelming mm, amount of evidence to put these people away. He also dropped the prosecution against Jimmy Savile. So it's not, mistakes were made and lessons were learned. This was systematic and deliberate. And tens of thousands of British girls were raped systematically in the most horrendous way. Some of them are murdered, many of them were tortured. Uh, Parents who tried to rescue their daughters were actually discouraged, disabled, uh, intimidated, and in some case arrested themselves. While all these people kind of, apart from handful of unlucky ones who got put away, um, these people got off scot-free and they're still doing it apparently. And so I want to go back to the word legitimacy. The whole process is going to be extremely toxic to the legitimacy of British government. And I'm not saying Keir Starmer, I'm talking about the whole entire political establishment. And that word takes me back to, um, what David Betts has been saying about this, that the UK is explosively configured for a breakout of a civil war, and that one of the main factors in this is the breakdown of legitimacy. So, once people no longer believe that they should be paying taxes to pedophile cannibals ruling over them, or that they should go to war for them, well, then you practically don't have a government anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think the the grooming gangs, along with Epstein file releases, along with the general mood in the British public, along with the really bad economic recession, unemployment, people dealing with unaffordable living, basically. I think it's all gathering to where social pressures are going to boil over at some point. We don't know when, we don't know what, we don't know where. So, controlled opposition, to my mind, would be distracting you from all of this. They would be talking about, oh, Alexei Navalny got poisoned with the dart frog poison. Oh, the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming, and
Yeah.
so forth. So the fact that Rupert Law is talking exactly about the issues that are relevant, but that could be extremely disruptive, tells me that he's probably not controlled opposition, at least not for the time being. Maybe like Nigel Farage, he's going to end up debanked, and then he's going to have a change of heart and become part of the establishment. But for the time being, I don't read him that way. I read, I don't agree with everything he says. He's I, what bothers me about the whole thing is that the whole thing is also becoming ripe for a misdirected conflict, between Christians and Muslims. Because
Yeah.
right now, because it's the Pakistanis doing it and Bangladeshis, people are associating this with Muslim culture. But you don't, you have you don't have Indonesian rape gangs, right? Indonesians are Muslims. You don't have Egyptian rape gangs. You don't have Iranian rape gangs. You have Pakistani ones. And it's not necessarily linked to Islam. Islam is not the issue. I mean, if people want to check me on this, go to a search engine and type in Indian rape culture. And Indians are not Muslims, they're Hindus. And so it's it's not about Pakistanis being Muslim. It's that the Pakistanis were shipped into Britain in large numbers, and then they were employed. And it's not just rape, it's VAT fraud, it's tax fraud, it's insurance fraud, it's it's all kinds of organized crime. And the point is to torment the British people, to polarize the society, and to make a lot of money off of it because they're making a lot of money. It's all being laundered through British banks. It's all ultimately benefiting the City of London, and it's very clearly being managed by a layer of, I don't know, MI5, MI6 types who are the layer above. So, you're getting mad at the hitman, but the people who ordered the hit and organized the whole thing are in the shadows. They're not Muslims at all. They're Christians. They're just using these people, also counting on when shit hits the fan, we're just going to have them fight between Christians and Muslims. We're going to say clash of civilizations, and then we're going to roll out the troops on the streets and force everybody under curfews, and we're going to take advantage of that crisis, which we are orchestrating as well, to give people a solution, which will be 15-minute cities, and then you're going to be safe there. And everybody's going to get a digital ID because we need to know who these people are, right? So I think this is where I part ways a little bit with Rupert Lowe because he's really uh, he's really aiming his anger, which is righteous, against Muslims, which I think is dangerous and potentially very highly counterproductive.
Alex, thank you. If I can comment on some of the stuff you said for our viewers' benefit. So one, Raja Mia is a Bengali Muslim who's been really outspoken in bringing this issue to the forefront. There are also Pakistani and Bengali Muslims in those communities who knew what was going on, who spoke out, but found themselves being beaten and raped by the perpetrators of these horrific acts. And then in terms of it be whether it's Pakistani or Muslim, the issue is, and I haven't seen this anywhere in the mainstream media or anywhere where it's covered. It's actually a close-knit community, Mirpur. Mirpur is a part of the northwest, the foothills of the Himalayas. And in the late 60s, the government decided to build a great big dam. They gave people lots of money as compensation because they had to flood all these villages in Mirpur. And many of those Mirpuri Pakistanis from this rural area settled in northern British towns. And because they're a close-knit community, that's what's uniting them. The fact that they're from the similar part of this sort of this subculture within Pakistan, where they're a lot more conservative than urbanite Pakistanis like myself from Lahore. And so that's the issue. Then I just want to say for those that are watching, I worked out some time ago that this had high level agreement, high level involvement, that they were okaying it. And how come that would have been is, if I actually encountered this. I mentioned this in a video before with you and Tom, that I was working in a children's home in Bradford in the early 90s, and there was a 15-year-old girl, white girl, in the children's home, and she would go off and abscond with this Pakistani boyfriend, this young man. And I was only there doing a few shifts, as a locum covering a few gaps. And I spoke to the social workers there, the ones that were always there, right? The permanent staff. It's like, what's happening here? What are we doing? And they said, there's nothing we can do. We can't lock her in, right? We try and say, okay, you're grounded. She'll escape anyway and go off with this guy. And we don't know what's happening. So no, that was my involvement, right? Was she somehow connected to these Pakistani rape gangs? Because this was in a northern town. I don't know, but that was their modus operandi: going into children's homes or schools and befriending these vulnerable women that don't have families looking after them or unlikely to have families looking out for them. And then you'd have family members, like I said earlier, Pakistani men and women saying, no, 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 you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, and them getting assaulted by their community. And there was also a network where the Pakistani taxi drivers were involved because they would shepherd these girls around. They knew where the women's refuges were because they were used by social services and women's aid agencies to move women who were fleeing violence to these places. And they'd pass on that information to their Mirpuri compatriots. And what would happen is that a qualified child protection social worker like myself would encounter something like this. Okay, there's these girls being raped. This guy's boyfriend, he's much, much older. What's going on here? Pass it on to his manager or her manager. And then her manager, because it looks like a fairly complex case, would pass it on to her manager. And it would go through the chain of accountability upwards, 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 until eventually it would reach somewhere in central government, the children's minister or the justice minister or the home office minister or some senior civil servant along that chain of accountability. And also along the lines of police accountability, where it would keep going up, keep going up, keep going up.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, somebody high up in that hierarchy was spreading the message, perhaps because they'd been told, stay away from this because Special Branch are investigating, because MI5 are investigating, because it's part of a much, much larger network and they've got
Yeah.
eyes on it. And that message would come down to the social worker on the ground. Don't do anything about this because Special Branch are investigating. And no doubt there were social workers and council officials and police officers who were being paid off to say nothing, or who were being threatened to say nothing, or
Yeah.
even worse, were capitalizing because they were being supplied girls. They were part of that network. So it's horrific, absolutely horrific. And then I agree with what you're saying. There's a risk of the ants. I mean, they are shaking the ant jar, getting the ants to fight each other, which is why I think it's incumbent upon Muslims and Pakistanis and, well, all people to speak out against this because no culture tolerates this, no religion tolerates this.
Yes. Well, let's put it this way. Uh, you might as well have Italian Sicilian mob doing this because it's happened that way in the past as well.
Yeah, or
Maybe
Catholics or Orthodox Jews.
exactly. So it could be, you could, if you had a problem with Italian mob, it wouldn't be right to say, oh, look, this is Catholic culture, or look, these are Italians, and so let's hate all Italians, let's hate all the Catholics. It's a different thing. And I think that, if you want to solve a problem, you need to move forward with the clearest possible understanding of the nature of the problem rather than lashing out impulsively and then ended up with a whole lot of unintended consequences and maybe even walking into a trap that is being set up for you because the minute you react emotionally, the minute your reactions are impulsive, uh, you're probably doing more harm than good. Anyway, so I think it's uh, the people of Britain have to deal with it, and they're not the only ones. Rapes are have become epidemic in Norway, in Sweden, in France, in Belgium, in many places.
In London.
Yeah, especially in Northwest Europe. They're not accidental. They're being encouraged and protected. The perpetrators are being protected. It's being done for a reason. Again, you have to think of these people as the hitmen. So they're not good people, but they're doing what they've been brought here to do. We have to ask who brought them and why,
And
and what
who's,
is their agenda.
yep, and who's letting them get away with it as well.
Yeah, and if we extrapolate the dots that have become apparent towards where this is going. My suspicion is that this is all being done to completely destroy the foundations of society because the people at the top of the totem pole want to replace national governments with private governing structures. Okay, they want to do away with the governments that are accountable to the people. They want governments accountable to corporations and banks. And we are not sovereign in their eyes. We are a resource in their eyes, hackable animals. So as far as they're concerned, our women, daughters being raped en masse doesn't matter at all. They don't care one iota. They want this to continue. They want to homogenize society completely, and they want to have warrior ants, and they want to have worker ants. They want to be able to take our children away very soon after birth, put them in their schools, train them up to be warriors or workers, and then extinguish them about as soon as they become useless. You know, um, you have a problem, you're depressed, you're not happy. Well, we have a treatment for you. It's called medical aid in dying. Uh, Shit like that. So the Pakistanis are only one piece of this puzzle as far as they're concerned. And we've seen events in Gaza, we've seen the Epstein file revelations. These people are flat out evil.
Mm.
Evil, evil to the extent that I mean, I knew a lot about this stuff because I've been paying attention. There was that Marc Dutroux guy in Belgium, remember? It's been 20, 30 years that he got busted with child trafficking. And that was in the news before the internet. But then it disappeared from the news when it turned out that the trail of breadcrumbs leads to the highest levels of Belgian political establishment. Um, then there was the Franklin scandal in the United States. Again, some 30 years ago, they discovered this whole colossal child trafficking network. So this has been with us for a long time. It's been going on for a long time. Uh, because these people are simply evil. They're being an evil psychopath is how you qualify to be one of them. Because you have to be capable of doing this to people because they want to completely overthrow civilian governments to bring out something completely different. And it takes a certain mindset to be able to look at humanity and to say, well, these are hackable animals and we are a higher species. We have the right to farm them and to treat them like farmed hackable animals. And that's cool because then we are kind of halfway between life and creation, like we're gods. Anyway, that
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for us all to speak out in whatever way we can. And you mentioned earlier about paying taxes to pedophiles. And because we've spoken about before, that I'm involved with a campaign called notaxforwar.com, where people can, if you're in the UK, you can, with reference to the International Criminal Court Act and the Terrorism Act, legally, lawfully, peacefully withhold your taxes. You can use that process if you object to the government protecting paedophiles. Same process as a protest against the paedophile enablers in government. So notaxforwar.com. And the other thing I want to say about Rupert Lowe and his party, Restore Britain, there has been talk in the Twitter sphere that Labour and the Green Party could form an alliance, an left-wing alliance against the right wing. So you have all these parties on the right wing, UKIP, Reform, Advance UK, Heritage Party. I have an interview with David Curtin from Heritage Party coming up soon. The Conservative Party, and that Restore Britain is just fragmenting that, although I think it's going to carry a lot of weight. I like to think that the joining forces with the Labour Party will be the kiss of death for the Green Party. I mean, really, who would ally with Starmer's Labour Party and think that would be a winning combination, Alex?
But you know, you had how many decades of Tories in charge?
I think 14 years
14,
before.
yeah, okay, 14 years. And then you got Labour. What changed?
Nothing changed.
Nothing.
They were both uniparty WEF
So you know,
captured.
you're not going to fix the country by voting this party in and that party out. It's all rigged. It's all completely rigged. The system has no legitimacy, and it's only the question of are the people going to recognize that, and are they going to do something about it, and how far are they prepared to go to do something about it? I mean, it's we talked a lot about the rape gangs. It's not just that. Look at what they're doing to farmers. They're deliberately destroying food production in the country. They're destroying farmers. They're covering it's in addition to being evil, it's insane because they're covering the countryside with solar panels. And then at the same time, they're like, oh yeah, we want to dim the sun as well.
Mm,
And they're systematically poisoning people. I mean, you just have to pay attention to ingredients in food. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Some people say that there's a soft kill operation going on,
yeah.
meaning, they're putting chemicals in all the daily, everyday use products uh, that, you know, accumulate and their effects compound, and you have an explosion of chronic diseases in society. W- People should be healthy. It wasn't so long ago like I remember when I was a kid, I went to school. I think there was like, I don't know, between 1,000 and 1,500 kids in this school. And we had one guy who had asthma, and we were all amazed. And the reason we even found out is because he was the only kid whose mother came to pick him up after school, the only one. So no parents didn't take their children to school, and they didn't come pick them up from school. We were perfectly safe to go and come back. And then we had three overweight boys in these, let's call them thousands students, and we had one boy with asthma. And so we were going to tease him because his mother was coming to pick him up. And then the teacher explained to us, don't tease him because she's coming for him because he has a health problem. And then they explained to us he has asthma. And we were like, what's asthma? And then they explained to us, and we were completely amazed. And we were like, oh my God, okay, fine. That did the trick. We didn't tease him anymore. But just to tell you that something changed in the environment, that now you have practically half the kids have something wrong with them. Either they
Yeah.
have asthma, or they're allergic to something, or they came
Autism,
from this other
ADHD.
ADHD, autism. Nobody wore glasses back when I was a kid. Practically nobody wore glasses. Now, I don't know what percentage, but a high percentage of kids wear glasses. And so this is being done in addition to rape gangs, in addition to destroying the farmers. They obviously want to destroy independent food producers because they want all the food to be processed through their, handful of big giant corporations that buy their ingredients from wherever they're produced in the cheapest possible way. So they reckon they don't need farmers. And so this is all being done very systematically and for a reason. So, these people being from Pakistan and being Muslim, that's only one feature of a much, much larger problem. And if you focus on that feature, you might find yourself walking into a trap,
Yeah,
full
absolutely.
of emotion, full of righteousness, but a trap. And then, once the cage slams shut, then all your righteousness and energy is not going to do you a whole lot of good, and you're going to find yourself in a much worse position than you were before. So I know that thinking is very hard and researching is very hard, and I'm the first one to admit it. I hate it, but it's necessary at this point because we are being attacked by an enemy. That enemy is at home, and they are hiring hitmen at various levels of society. And it's very important to know that in hiring the hitmen, they're already preparing for our reaction. And they're already making sure that when we react, we're going to walk into the next trap. So I'm encouraged to know that I think Rupert Lowe watches your podcast religiously.
Well, I
And
have reached out to him and also to Ben Habib from Advanced UK, so fingers crossed we'll get something soon. But what you're saying about research and looking where they don't want us to look is really,
yes,
really important, which is why listening to you and all the stuff you do on YouTube, your website, plus when you go on interviews with other people as well, Alex, why that's so important and people can follow you on X to keep up to date with all your ideas and your thinking. And Alex, do you know, I acknowledge and I appreciate your humanity and your love for humanity. It's such a
well,
it's so great. I'm so
well,
grateful that you
well,
do this with me.
thank you, Rich, but I think it shouldn't be such you know, all of creation is a wonderful miracle. I mean, like when you look at puppies and kittens and dolphins
Little
and
children
birds and children,
and
we
yeah,
are part of that. Why should we be any less precious than all the rest of it? And then, like when you become a parent, when you spend a good chunk of your life watching your children grow, it's it's so
it's wonderful.
it's bliss. It's like as they say, raising children is the grand song of life, or at least it should be. We've been deprived of that too. For a lot of people, it's unbearable, unaffordable stress. It used to be, the best part of life. And then once you've successfully accomplished it, you got the reward in the form of grandchildren. And so, life, this place should be the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven. We really live in a world that looks, like when you look at places, when you look at what humanity creates, the cathedrals, the symphonies, operas,
Mm.
the books you can read, we create such wonderful stuff. This is being all systematically stripped away from us, destroyed.
And we shall.
And we need to fight for it. We need to fight for it, and there's no choice.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not difficult to love humanity when you look at all these things that are being obscured from us. Like people who will risk their life when they see a dog in an icy river. They like risk their life to go rescue that dog. There's no money incentive behind it. Nobody's maximizing the profit. It's just a man risking his life to save a dog, and you see that all the time everywhere. And this is what our true nature is. It's just that we're thrown into this game of survival where we're just being mm, shut into a tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter matrix. where, like at a certain point, it alters who we are. It turns humanity into a radical perversion of itself. But, it shouldn't be difficult to appreciate what we could be and what we should be. And that's worth fighting for because that's everything.
Absolutely, Alex. Absolutely, Alex. Thank you so much. Really appreciate this. Look forward to speaking to you soon. At some point, everybody, please comment, like, subscribe. Let us know what you think is worth fighting for. This is Rich and Alex signing out. All the best. Bye bye.